Well, how does it feel to be out west after a while? Because I feel like it's been a little bit, hasn't it?
Well, it has, except I did a project in Hope, BC, near Hope, BC this summer supposed to be a 2 month project, ended up being 3 months. So, yeah, I've been out west, but I haven't been in Calgary that much.
Oh, okay, right on. It's so funny, these projects, the ones you were doing, they're a bit of a reclamation job as a construction manager. You know, when the jobs go longer, it seems like the hands kind of appreciate it, and the owners are just like usually wringing their hands a little bit, wondering why. Like, what do you attribute this schedule slip to most times?
Well, most times it's regulatory. I think in our case, we had lost about 3 weeks. It wasn't a new permit, it was just a resurrection of a permit from the previous year.
Mm-hmm.
And it took about 3 weeks to get that kind of in place. And once that was done, so that's how we ended up losing our time.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, the schedule was pretty good to what we had decided ahead of time, what we thought it would take to do it. So
Right on. I hear in social media and stuff always about the regulatory hurdles and red tape and onerous and all this kind of stuff. And, without talking to someone who's involved with permitry, whether at the provincial or federal level, like it's, I don't even know if too many of us really understand the timings and the durations and the hurdles.
Well, what's just shocking to somebody I talked to the other day, I said, you do realize some of these huge projects, it's $100 million before you even get your permit or more.
Mm-hmm.
They got to do all the regulatory stuff related to the environment, related to Indigenous,
Mm-hmm.
related to land, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
All the regulatory processes. A huge project, they spend $100 million without even getting a permit yet, that type of thing.
And knowing if they have a job. And it's funny, it's all like very susceptible to whatever the political climate of the day is. I remember working on, Gateway for a few years and being excited, and it was a great project, and the amount of due diligence we took into it, not just constructability technically, but environmentally and safety and all the planning and permitry. And then all of a sudden, with a change of government at the federal level, all of a sudden they didn't accept that NEB recommendation at the time. Pretty disheartening.
Yeah, it was disheartening because we spent a lot of years on that. It's almost like we were living in a kingdom where the king says no.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really understand all that. And not that I'm wanting to get into the politics of things,
Mm-hmm.
but certainly it seems like things go a lot better, smoother when we have a pro-business climate in our government.
Like regardless of the industry.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I could see that. It's funny, when we were driving to work with Sweet Marie this morning, we always talk about this Alberta Advantage, and we're like looking at each other going, like, well, what is that exactly? I'd like to know what that is, because we all have some vague idea of it, but even I don't know what it is, and I'm not from here, but I call this place home, and I love it, because in many respects, people think like me, for right or for wrong, they think like me, and this is my home, but what's that Alberta Advantage, Dave? I don't know. Like, I really don't know.
Well, I think if you ask our premier here, she could probably help define that for you. But definitely, I mean, when you start looking at even real estate, the quality real estate you can get here for a lot less money than you can in other jurisdictions. So that's one thing that's an advantage for sure. We don't have that provincial sales tax.
Yeah.
When I'm down at my place in Ontario there, everything I go to buy, I get penalized 13%.
What are you getting for that 13%? I'd like to know.
Well, yeah, I'm buying a 2x4 and I'm paying 13% more for it because I guess the provincial government down there needs that extra 8%. Or on top of the 5% GST. So that's an advantage here. As well, and then one of the advantages that I like here in Alberta is I'm seeing a lot of people that were interested in the outdoors and all that stuff, and the farming and all the things that people like to do outside of city life, whether it's the mountains or everything. That's a huge advantage here, I think. So.
No, I think so. I've had to speak up for Ontario a few times recently, the same way I speak up for Northeast BC, because they have, the people from Ontario. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute here. We need to draw some jurisdictional lines here, because I have a lot of friends and family that are very construction, industry-oriented, all these things in northwestern Ontario. I'm certainly not pissing all over the rest of Ontario, which I love also. But yeah, it's definitely it's such a massive area. It's so culturally distinct, and it doesn't matter where you go.
Well, I booked into a hotel last night in Winnipeg before I flew out here to Calgary this morning, and there was two people at the desk there, and they're new Canadians. You could tell, they were new Canadians, and I think they could have been Filipino. They're new Canadians, but happy, good-go-lucky people. But when I said, "Oh yeah, I just drove in from Ontario," which is 3.5 hours to the Winnipeg airport, they thought the first thing people think is Toronto.
For sure.
Which is about a 24-hour drive. So, yeah, it's a big place, Ontario. A lot of good things happening there. They're building a lot of roads up into the north. They're putting a lot of power into the First Nations, because a lot of those nations there, they fly in. They got, some of them got winter roads. Some are getting all weather or all year round roads. They're getting power lines put in, and one good thing that's going to come out of that is that it'll help some of the mining activity that's going on in the northern part of Ontario. And when I say northern Ontario, I'm not talking North Bay, Ontario, which is...
You're talking actual northern
Ontario. Yeah, actually northern Ontario. Yeah, within spitting distance to James Bay type thing. So the First Nations they're getting some good things happen up there, and I'm pretty happy to see that actually.
No, for sure. Like every time you see these infrastructure projects, especially highway is a good example, because that transportation utility corridor is not long behind its power, often fiber cable, sometimes even gas pipelines, which are desperately needed. It's still up even in the Yukon. There's still people, heating their houses using heating oil, and I think on the East Coast as well too. And you just got to shake your head with all this energy here in Canada.
Well, you think of the First Nations that I'm talking about getting power lines in there now. They're running off generators, and their fuel has to come in either, on the winter roads, or it has to come in even by aircraft sometimes. And it's a huge burden on the costs.
Yeah. And the environmental footprint and all that stuff.
Oh, everything, all the above. Yeah.
So getting back to Alberta, just, everyone knows who you are. So many people, or they've heard about you, met you along the way. Just if you could just retrace your story a little bit, Dave, because not a lot of people have heard you talk too much about it, how you came to be in Alberta, because it was a long, windy road for you, I would say.
Well, it was. I started out as a surveyor, and what I found out was if you have 4 children and you're working as a surveyor, you're not making very good money. So I got into pipeline about 1981, and my whole lives changed. And then, of course, the other Trudeau was in the 80s, and I had all the high interest rates and everything, and it just shut down the oil patch, so to speak, the pipelines and all the drilling and everything was kind of shut down for a number of years. And I ended up, as you know, going up to Yellowknife for 2.5 years to build roads, and then come back and we did some fiber optic work, and then back into pipeline with marine pipeline, the old marine they call it, blue marine, and the late 80s, and they asked me if I wanted to move to Calgary, which we did, as you know, in 1990. And I think it was around 95 that I started sort of consulting, which is just about 30 years ago, and then set up this Pipestone Projects brand coming out of that as a rebrand in 2013. Yeah. In fact, I think it was the day before I turned 65, we incorporated this Pipestone.
You and Colonel Sanders, man. No, I think it's awesome. So tell me about coming to Alberta, because that is my interest in your story, because your story isn't that dissimilar with so many, Dave. Like, I'd say, Sweet Marie is, say, in her mid-40s, so she's of a generation of people that are born and raised in Calgary. You always talk, everyone's from somewhere else. Well, not really. There's actually a whole generation of people are from here, and I came here as a younger guy, and I always tell people, I'm an Alberta guy.
Well, exactly. I mean, if you spend 30 years in a place, that's your home.
For sure, but what did you see? I know you came out here for a job, and that's fine, which is what draws most people out. But what did you see in Alberta at the time compared to Ontario?
Well, I mean, the tough thing that I had, well, I shouldn't say, when we came here, we came from Sarnia. So there was work there for me, which was different than when you're living up in the northwest around Thunder Bay. And in the northwest part, it was really tough to find, kind of ongoing work. But coming out of Sarnia, it was good in that. But I think at first I looked at it as an opportunity for myself, but then quickly realized it was an opportunity for my children to come to Calgary, come to Alberta, because of things were starting to open up again in 1990 after some pretty tough times here with high interest rates and some bad federal policies.
For sure. I've actually talked to Marie's dad about that a fair amount, and it's so funny when you talk about the first Trudeau. Again, I don't want to get too deep into politics, but for a guy who came, to Alberta the age he did and grew up professionally here and all these things, and when you talk about these things, he takes it very, very personal, and it's a wound that doesn't seem to heal, even for a guy who's of your similar age, because he said, you know what? If you've ever watched your own friends have a life, build a life, and then go take their keys back to the bank, this is not a metaphor or anything. This is real, and to watch it happen with your own hands, it's very personal. So go back 40-something years now, and that it's still pretty fresh.
Well, it is. It doesn't go away, because these are things that define your being. It's not defining you, and even defining your future is some of those tough times. Like my old friend Tom Holton used to say, "It ain't easy, man." People went through some really, really tough times, and it could be that people are going through some really tough times right now too. Apparently these food banks and everything they're like double what they're just people are having trouble. And when you, again, political thing, but you throw a tax on carbon dioxide that they have, then all of a sudden the truck bringing the food to Safeway is more expensive. Everything becomes more expensive, and that you can't sit here and say, "Oh, the greedy shop owners." I don't look at it that way. I look at it, what is the shop owner supplying for his part of it, and what is the government supplying for their part of what we're...
Yeah, it all trickles down to the consumer at the end of the day.
In the end, it's always,
Yeah. So what do you see? Like, I know with all the people hurt lately, because, the NGTL loops and Trans Mountain and Coastal and a variety of other large infrastructure projects, coincidentally, kind of snapping together at the same time, and it spilled a lot of pipeliners onto the street. Like, how do you encourage people, Dave, to hang in there? Because we've created these pipeliners. People, we brought them into this community. We've given them skill sets, trades, experience, and even a community to belong to. And now all of a sudden they're on the street.
Yeah, I think. Here at Pipestone, we did a study probably around 2018 or so, and I figured at that time, I went and looked at everybody that was working, how many pipeliners were working, including inspection, and including construction management in the field and all that. And I come up with a number like 17 or 18,000 pipeliners in Canada at that time. Well, fast forward to 2022 or 3, when you got all this work on Trans Mountain, everything on Coastal GasLink going on, plus other things going on, integrity work and whatnot. I think that we had brought so many new people on. We were in excess of 30,000 pipeliners working in Canada. Now, what are they going to do? I mean, this is what happens. People, it's kind of tough. It's always been this way, kind of a cyclical thing, up and down. But man, we got a lot of people that are really looking for work right now. And you get it, I get it. People virtually daily are asking me for help. What can I do?
And I don't. All I can do is encourage people and tell them to most of them I encourage, find a foxhole to hide until it picks up again. Because so many people said, well, why is this cyclical? I said, well, it's a market-driven thing for the most part, and with these multi-year permitting and planning programs that have to take place before these things even become live.
But, I've always found it interesting how these large projects seem to want to occur at the same time. I'm not sure what happens in these boardrooms where there's some guy says, hey, they're building a pipeline, let's do it too at the same time.
Well, I was suggesting this to someone else recently. If they could try to get together and try to offset these a little bit, but I'm told that's called collusion, Dave, and you're not supposed to do it.
Apparently. But yeah, I mean, right now we're looking at PRGT, and I'm not sure what the permit looks like right now. I think they're analyzing whether it's still live or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, I think the pipeline contractors are ready to go. The pipeliners for sure are ready to go. Hopefully we can get things moving sooner rather than later there on that project. So.
Well, my hope is that we've created so much good experience and had so much quality lessons learned dealing with these larger scope projects. Again, Trans Mountain and Coastal in particular are on my mind. I want to harness all that stuff and take all that experience from not just the management, construction management group. I'm talking even to the operators who now are comfortable working on steep slopes and more people more comfortable around winching and all these kind of things. I want to grab that all before these people scatter and move somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the other thing is working around hotlines and things like that. I mean, that's not for a novice, but yeah, now that people have had that experience. So, yeah.
Wow, I'm definitely hopeful. Again, everyone just wants to get out to work, and I'm no different. But I guess why don't you just close us out, Dave, with some words of encouragement for those struggling out there right now in the industry?
Well, it's that old thing, tough times do last, but tough people do. Mm-hmm. So. Hopefully these tough times will get turned around here. I know some people are afraid of the U.S. Tariffs and things like that, but I see that as kind of a positive thing to have pro-business going on there. I think we'll see some good spin-offs, especially in Alberta.
Cool. Right on. Thanks, David. Appreciate it. Well, welcome back to Alberta, if only for a couple of days.
Thank you.